5 extreme adventurists from the Madswimmer team are en route to the Andes mountain range in Chile, South America. They're attempting a world record swim in the highest pocket of water on the planet. After a lengthy flight, they arrive in Copiapó in the Atacama Desert. From here, the contingent moves to a small coastal town, where at sea level, their adventure will begin. It's while they're on their very first practice swim that they hear more about conditions on their destination, Mount Ojos.
Water here is at 15 degrees, so it's quite a relatively warm swim. But the guys, I must say, are all amped and psyched up. We've done our start of the phase, starting at sea level, and then hopefully we're going to be hitting that highest point. Although one of the guides that's been up there a month ago was quite concerned and said that the lake's frozen solid. So the hurdles have already started and we haven't even, got off the way. But we'll make a plan.
A plan, yes, but it's a very big hurdle.
So plan B will entail us driving a day, an extra day from Mount Ojos to another mountain. The lake's at 5,800 meters, which is still a world record. We've had visual confirmation that this lake's not totally totally frozen. It's partially frozen. It comes at a cost, and it comes at a lot of extra time. It's going to be a few hard calls we'll have to make the next few days, and we can only be hopeful at this point in time. I guess that's all part of these trips where you are doing things that have never been done before.
The team take on the winding Chilean roads, climbing higher inland to 2,500 meters. After a hearty stopover meal at the mining town in El Salvador, the 4x4 traction kicks in on the Atacama Desert roads.
The mountaineering was a major challenge. The camping was a challenge. I've never slept in a sleeping bag in my life. I've never slept in a tent in my life. I've never camped. That was a challenge.
Dr. Sean Gottschalk and Daryl Wood, specialists in altitude acclimatization, do the necessary tests on the Madswimmers. They are now at 3,200 meters above sea level. As the sky paints its magic in the Atacama Desert, the team settle for their evening meal and a welcome rest.
So we started off this morning at base camp at 3,250. We drove about 24 kilometers to the closest volcano, the highest in the region. It was about a 2-hour drive, and climbed another 400 meters. It took us about 2 hours. Quite tricky climbing conditions, a lot of gravel. Winds are quite hectic up there. These are the conditions that we're going to face on the day that we have to ascend to the pool.
The air temperature is dropping dramatically as well.
We're doing a daily check on everyone, and we're checking their vital signs, which is really their sort of pulse rates, respiratory rates, and then also what their saturations are, oxygen saturations.
Pretty strong. We're ascending at quite a rapid rate, and we did a climb today to about 4,700 meters. And most of the guys are saturating at a similar level, and the heart rate has gone up. But that's to be expected. We've hiked all day, we've had some sun. So overall the guys are looking quite good. 1 or 2 of the guys have needed some medicine, but no one's acutely unwell.
Laguna Verde is the second campsite for the Madswimmer team in the picturesque Andes Mountains. Here they will acclimatize for a few days, go on hikes even higher, and come back to base at 4,300 meters above sea level.
So basically here we are. We're going to do a test run. This is the rescue equipment for the ice swimmers that are going in speedos. But you know what they say? A crazy idea is crazy until it's done. So we're going to practice and make it happen.
from the beginning. I didn't see it as a challenge for me. It was to swim. It was more to help the other guys that, that are seriously into swimming. I got my fix with one kite surf session here, so that was very enjoyable.
We did one of our first challenges, completed that this afternoon, did a bit of kiting, but no, three of us, myself, Rob and Herman, managed to get the kites out there. It was quite great. The water temperature is quite cold.
Today was the first time we've done a bit of a swim. That was a test swim. Quite challenging, definitely with a wind chill factor made it quite tricky. Short of breath, but otherwise came out all right.
It is extremely salty. It's about 2 to 3 times like salt water. Big difference is the wind chill factor. The wind is blowing at about 40 kilometers per hour. It feels like an equivalent of swimming in about 2 degrees, comparing the pain in your hands and feet. But what it does do is it helps with building confidence for the big swim higher up.
Definitely going to be more difficult to breathe as we get up there, and definitely windier. This is well known for being an extremely windy area in the Andes.
Yeah, it is with fear in our hearts that we're going up.
Local guide Carlos informs the team of another lake fairly close by.
We've always been consultants to what I call mad expeditions, and I'll always have a look at it in terms of with no guarantees or promises and that sort of thing. It's always been up in the air and whether this was actually possible. There's always a chance that this might not happen. You know, we tried to climb the mountain. A couple of the mountaineers came up 100 meters short. Unlucky. That's the nature of this game. This is exploratory, and there was always a chance that we would never find a liquid lake, whether we could get it open.
Eduardo, the lead guide, takes a small group with him to Mount Tres Cruces, where they plan to summit and look for another lake.
The first scout, one of the guides, the Chilean guides we sent out, brought back pictures, and I guess we were so glad that the lake was there, and we didn't spend much attention to the level of ice.
Yes, Eduardo confirmed the lake on top of Mount Tres Cruces, but then more bad news. Jean Reyhuman was down with a lung infection, and because of the high altitude, his health would deteriorate, so the medical team gave him medication and oxygen, and then decided it was best for him to head back to Copiapó and get assistance there. Dead Donkeys, or Mount Mulos Muertes, lay ahead at 5,600 meters. But first, vehicle problems would halt the team's next acclimatization hike.
When we signed on, it was, the Andes, in Chile, a swim, cold water, so it was all, so appealing, but you don't think about the actual altitude acclimatization. And as you go to each higher level and each camp and each climb, you just realize how difficult it is. You're gasping for breath. Yeah, something I've never sort of experienced before.
But the climbing was exceptionally hard. This was the hardest. This was the hardest challenge we've ever done.
The acclimatization from a height perspective was one of the big aspects of this trip that we had to cover.
There was a lot of work put into acclimatizing and getting the guys ready to swim at altitude. So we did quite a lot of mountaineering above 5,000 meters, which was, it's really demanding on the body.
Your head just starts banging, and you just got to be careful about the speed that you're going up, and you just got to work with the guides and just watch them. But definitely acclimatization is a big challenge.
It's hard, it's tough. Sometimes we have storms, we have everything, we have wind. In this mountain at least it's very windy here. It was very tough, because some people is slower, some people is faster. So we have to care of everybody, and it's difficult sometimes.
70 kilometers was the wind speed. The hike on Mount San Francisco was called off after reaching 5,600 meters. Herman van der Westhuizen makes use of his downtime to test himself in 6 degrees of water for 20 minutes. The team doctors look on with caution. Down at the water, the wind has now dropped to 40 kilometers per hour. The salt level is extremely high. Herman is visibly uncomfortable.
How long is it? It's going to come now. Your feet and your hands are white and the rest of your body's red.
Yeah, it's bad. Yes.
A thermal bath next to the icy lake helps Herman with his recovery. No such luxury higher up on the official swim though. A daunting prospect. The specialist monitors Herman very closely.
And that's 15 minutes after swim. So you must have been about 30 miles. So still got a little while to go.
A chilly night, breakfast. Then Madswimmer founder Jean Craven and Chris Martinison decide that they will have a practice swim. The water remained at 6 degrees, but the wind speed was much less. "32 degrees in the thermal pool, what a contrast." Once again, the doctors monitor very closely.
Very salty, floating high, so that's good. You get less cold, your head's not in the water.
Today, the team will depart to Ojos del Salado for base camp at 5,500 meters above sea level. Ascending to the next base camp was tough going. Adventure Dynamics International were used to it, but so too the Madswimmers. They have overcome difficulties, challenges and extreme conditions before. And why? Charity. Yes, charity. They want to prove to the world what able people can do if they put their minds to it, to help those in need. This is Ojos Base Camp.
It's just from a logistical perspective. First of all, I'm dealing with a bunch of swimmers who've never mountaineered before. I mean, the guys have been fantastic. They've become these mountaineers, and they are the most hardcore swimmers. And we've managed to stitch the two facets together perfectly. There's been some ups and downs. There's been some strategize, re-strategize.
Most people felt altitude problems like headaches, this cough, this hoarse voice. Some people had gastrointestinal problems. It can really compromise you with your performance when you're trying to, perform at altitude.
It really is tough. I've got a lot of respect for mountaineers. I mean, it's tough.
But that's what exploratory expeditions are about. This is an amazing new journey, finding a lake that's actually swimmable at this time of year, because we've always had the threat of, or no guarantee that the lake will be liquid. How were we going to deal with this frozen lake? Would it be swimmable? Was it warm? Was it cold? Was it thermic? Because this is a very geothermic area. It's also quite dangerous standing on thin ice. There's a wind problem, a temperature problem, a frostbite problem, and major injury problem. So we always need to combat any form of injury and make sure first and foremost we're safe and that everybody comes back.
The team is upbeat, yet there is an underlying tension. A bit of apprehension, perhaps. The mountaineers remained behind to later summit Mount Ojos, while the Madswimmers set out for Mount Tres Cruces. The Three Crosses mountain is a 2-hour drive from Mount Ojos, then a grueling 6-hour hike with full kit and support equipment.
That is the point. If you slept, normally you slept like this, no? And it's safe.
Guide Eduardo advises the team to forget climbing the loose gravel. Rather ascend via the snow and ice, but with ropes and crampons. A tall order for swimmers.
And then a few days later, we took a skeleton crew out early one morning. Just to put it into perspective, this lake's at 5'9", and you start climbing at 5,000 meters, and it's an ice climb. It's a strip of snow. You have to climb 1 kilometer up, and then you go into this caldera where this lake's in. So it's quite a challenging climb. And we were quite shocked, you know, to find this lake solidly frozen. And we walked on with our boots and crampons onto the lake. I mean, these chainsaws aren't built to work at this altitude. And so we tried to start them, and we were really struggling. We ran out of time, and we left the chainsaws, covered them up, and came down. And then, you know, then this worry starts creeping in. How are we going to get through this ice? And that was one of our major concerns.
Jean briefs the team on the plan for swim today. A 4 a.m. start in order to reach the lake in the volcanic depression of Tres Cruces. There's a nervy edge to the swimmers. So much to think about. Is it even possible? How thick will the ice be once the team arrives?
So the pressure is really on, you know, and there's a time window, you know. We don't have the luxury of just postponing this until we get a solution. So the pressure was really on, you know, and we knew then it was a big challenge. The night before the swim, I was not sure if we were going to do it, you know, but, you know, I think we had the mindset of, you know, let's just go out and give it our best.
The time arrives for the lead group to start their hike. 2 hours by vehicle, and as the sun brightens, the hike up the mountain begins.
Okay, first of all, you must get acclimatized to the high altitude. Just to give you an idea, there's only 45% of the oxygen there that you'll find on sea level. So, you know, what happens is when you go up, your saturation levels of oxygen drop, and then you come and sleep low, and you do the whole acclimatization process. What it comes down to, we've climbed Kilimanjaro 5 times in a week, just to give you an idea of the extent of the expedition. So that was a tall order on its own. It's actually surreal. You have to climb a 6,000 meter mountain, which takes us 10 days just to get used to the thin air.
Halfway there, the hardest bit ahead. Just gonna do it now.
The extreme part of this was a really hard mountain hike up to 6,000 meters. So, which included, as you know, ice crampons, roped in. Took us 6 hours really to get to the lake. So the swimmers themselves, usually they, you know, are at sea level, they walk out, they're prepared. They were quite tired when we got there, low oxygen.
You know, an 18-hour day, 6 hours of climbing uphill, it was an 18-hour day. That's a long time.
I cringed thinking about it, but towards the top of that mountain, I thought to myself, I'm not convinced I can actually carry on. And then it was just putting one foot in front of another and just maintaining a particular rhythm. And once we were at the top, it was a climb down 200 meters down a caldera to the lake, and then the realization that we have to do this back up just to get the momentum down the hill again. So it was tremendously difficult. A caldera is almost a basin where that fits into the top of a mountain, and that's where that lake sat. So in other words, you climb, you ascend to 6,014 meters, then you descend into the caldera, and the lake sat in this caldera.
That was strenuous. That was really strenuous, and the altitude, you can feel it. We're used to the around about the 5.5, but now you come over the top there, that's 6,000, and you can definitely feel it, and we've got quite a long trek back.
Then when we actually got to the lake, we had already recce'd it and we thought we had water, but
yeah, that's fun. And to my amazement, you know, on the right-hand side, I saw, you know, a sliver of light blue water. And gee, you know, this wasn't there the day 2 days before on our scouting trip.
Luck at last.
We eventually found a spot that was about 5 meters wide, and then we broke it open with a pick for another 3 or 4 meters. And that was about as far as we could get. We You just simply had no power to break open more ice. That was it. You know, we were nearly dead just by breaking the ice.
Okay, so we're setting up some tents now to keep the swimmers warm before the dive and the swim, and then afterwards as well.
We still had to break open a lot of the ice, and it was quite thick in some parts. Some of the submerged ice, which looked as though it was clear, we had submerged ice underneath the water that was flowing, and that was about sort of 20 centimeters that we had to pick out and break open. But
30 centimeters of ice, thicker than the day before on the recce, and the chainsaws do not want to start. The air is too thin.
The difference between 0.5 and 4 is enormous, and it's a bigger hit on the system.
Going in together.
In terms of risk, it was very isolated, so we were really on our own.
From a mental point of view, it was touch and go until the last minute, that we knew we were actually going to crack literally through the ice to be able to do this swim. So by far, it was one of our most challenging swims ever.
Yeah, do you want it?
I can't believe this is actually happening.
Evan Feltman, the first of the 2 wetsuit swimmers, enters the highest liquid body of water on the planet. He gasps for air.
And I felt very emotional because I knew the efforts that it took to get there. For everybody that partook in it, the non-swimmers and the swimmers. And I got out and it felt wonderful because people were cheering and clapping, and it was an amazing thing. And we concluded we broke a world record. It was an amazing experience.
Take it all off. Yeah. Gloves. It was frightening. It was tougher than I thought. Pulling through the water, very little air, but I think adrenaline pulls you through, and we got these 2 gents over here looking after us afterwards, so it makes it much easier. Yours as well, do you want?
I must say, obviously a few late nights in the tent wondering why the hell are we here? What are we doing? I think anything's possible, as long as it's physically possible. Anything is possible as long as you decide you want to do it and you apply your mind to it. I guess, at first it's quite excitement, jumping into ice water. So you don't realize it, and then, after 4 or 5 minutes, the normal hands-feet situation starts kicking in, with that numbness and pain starts kicking in. And it's really, it's 90% in the mind, 10% physically. We all basically the same human beings, and it's just a question of how much you really want to do that. So, and I think this charity goes to show we are all normal business people, and we decide on a challenge and we go for it, and we get it done.
The absolute relief and elation is very evident when John Craven exits the water. Amazing and awesome.
It's done. I had nightmares about opening this lake, and I had bigger nightmares of staying longer
Shivering.
up here. But
It's going to be about 140.
that's great, huh?
Do it again.
Great teamwork.
Teamwork indeed. After the cruel, grueling climb, the swim could become secondary, but it definitely was not.
As you get out of the tent, the first perception is sugar. This is super cold, and then the wind's blowing. That is the biggest factor in the Atacama Desert. You can't describe on pictures how cold and how harsh and how windy it is here. For me personally, everybody got his own reasons, but for me to be able to get your body to a point where you can control your body to swim in ice, on ice, under ice, it's quite a nice thing to do. So I recognized the cold, and I said, okay, it's cold, and then my body stopped shivering, and it's not cold at all for me. It's just the pain in my hands and my feet. So it's just about getting over the reflex that the brain is using to protect itself. But the body can normally go much further than what the brain thinks, because the brain is always, it's an organ that protects itself. You know, what happens is if you fall at that altitude in a lake, you know, if you come out, you're already frozen. Everything freezes. So the moment you take it out with a wind chill factor, it becomes ice. You walk 5 meters and your breath is away. That is the biggest issue. So the big thing is controlling your heart rate and not to exert yourself at all.
500 kilometers from the nearest airport, in a frozen lake, in a volcanic crater.
But to give you an idea of how cold it was, I had 5 layers of clothing on, and I was freezing after 4 of the guys had swum. So that's just to put things into perspective.
Arguably the toughest of all Madswimmer challenges so far.
It's a good day, good weather. Yeah. Can't ask for better. Yeah. 5,900 plus.
Woo! And this, it's beautiful under the ice. It's just so cold. But it's done, eh? Cool stuff.
Well done, eh?
Literally and figuratively.
World record, eh?
Chris Martinison is the next naked swimmer to receive his final brief and hookup.
But just before you go in, I don't really think of it. I then have a process. I take my kit off and then just walk towards the water and you just climb in. But yeah, once you've got that cold water on your feet and your legs, then you just start adjusting. You just start getting your mind right or try to. And you just got to control your breathing. But once you're in and you're totally submerged and you can swim around, then it's, you know, it's your body starts going numb, and it's just easier. But it's still quite tough.
Sean, are you next?
I think it's just looking for something that's not that's out of routine, because you know, that's what we really look for, something different. I mean, something like this is just an adventure. I mean, it's just something totally different. So we get our kicks out of it, and just an amazing thing. So it's definitely for a worthy cause. Yeah.
Then before the swims, and it was extreme. I mean, there's low oxygen, it's at high altitude, and then you've got hypothermia, and that's a bad combination for anyone.
The highest body of water ever swum on the planet becomes their playground.
For the rules, eh?
They have to stay in the icy water for 5 minutes. The medical team is ever vigilant from the edge of the water. What awaits below the ice? The support crew is more anxious than Chris. Time to get out, they say.
And the minute they finish that swim, they're straight into a warm tent, and then it's warm them up slowly and gently.
Woohoo!
The slow, monitored recovery is crucial.
Very interesting, and just a spectacular setting here in the Andes, and you know, just under 6,000 meters. What an opportunity, and yeah, just so happy. Really, it was great.
In this type of situation, they're certainly synergistic. Firstly, just getting to the lake takes an enormous amount of physical and mental strength. Yeah, that's before you even get in the water. And a number of the guys were really very nervous to get into the water, especially in such an isolated environment. They were well aware that there were no ambulances. We probably couldn't have carried somebody out, and it's too high for chopper support. So we were on our own.
Relief and joy now, but they were very aware of their remote extreme location. So too was the oldest campaigner, Milton Brest.
If you want. Okay.
I've been training with young guys all my life. So for me, it's just been going with emotions and doing what we have to do with them.
You can walk.
Age is not really important. I wore a wetsuit. I always wear a wetsuit in these swims. The challenge was at that altitude putting on a wetsuit, but you overcome these things. It's something that you just know that you've got to do. The swim was important. You know, the swim was important to the charity. You know, we've done what we had to do for the swim. Your mind is so important. You've got to know exactly what you want to do. It's something that if you don't know what you want to do, you mustn't even start these expeditions. Your mind just overrides everything else. And once you're part of it, it will always be part of you. It doesn't matter what age you are. You're as young as you feel.
An emotional Milton completes his swim.
And in a time frame of 13 days, we managed to actually pull this off. This has broken Lewis Pugh's record of 5,400 meters, and we're now at 5,900 meters. So it's been an amazing, amazing journey.
When you do expeditions like this, you do realize how fortunate we are. And only by realizing how fortunate you are can you give something back, because you're putting yourself in someone else's shoes that aren't as fortunate as what we are.
I've done some other swims with Madswimmers, and it's always been a fantastic adventure, and it is for a real good cause.
Charity is the front line of this organization. All funds that are raised for this organization goes 100% to vetted charities, vetted children's charities. And it's an amazing thing. We've delivered big checks to them before, and we've seen the outcome of some of the operations that have taken place with the money that has been used. It's been fantastic. So absolutely, that's at the forefront of it all.
The Madswimmer team have once again proven that able people can help and change the lives of others in a very big way.